The aspect of the film we decided to analyze was the historical footage in the documentary Maestra. The importance of the footage. Maestra contains a wealth of historical footage, both of the literacy campaign and of the surrounding historical climate of Cuba at the time. The footage serves to illustrate the movement for the viewers, highlight the efforts of the young women brigadistas of the time, frame the historical landscape of post-revolutionary Cuba, and demonstrate the point of view of the Cubans during that time period. The illustration of the movement. Rather than simply relying on the testimonials of the former brigadistas, the historical footage further illustrates the literacy movement. The film uses a variety of shots to portray the movement. The use of crane and pan shots give the impression to the viewer that they are actively watching the scene, rather than just using long shots and close shots. Using these historical shots allows the viewer to imagine the full scope of the campaign, the time period, and the surroundings in which the women worked and lived in. This first shot shows the brigadistas holding pencils, celebrating the end of the campaign. The angle used was a high angle looking downward among the crowd. This photo is a still taken midway through a pan shot of the brigadistas on buses heading to the train stop after the campaign. This next shot shows the young women at the celebration ceremony where they were given lanterns and books to begin the campaign. The style used was a full shot looking down the line of women marching. This last still is a 3/4 to medium shot of one of the educators teaching the literacy students in a rural village home. The way in which these different angles and shots were used in the historical footage chosen, from the pan and crane shots that give a viewer a larger scope of the scene in a way that makes them realistic and relatable, to the closer shots that add more detail to the scenes, help to illustrate the campaign in a way that the testimonials of the women could not do. Las Brigadistas. The documentary emphasized the role of women in the literacy campaign by focusing solely on their testimonials and viewpoints. The use of the women demonstrated a view contrary to the traditional patriarchal society that characterized Cuba prior to the revolution. More than simply using the footage of the women as older adults reminiscing, the historical footage allows the viewer to imagine the robust young women leaving the home, striving for independence, and serving their country with pride. The film, as a modern piece, makes it a point to highlight the efforts of the women instead of the men. In doing so, the documentary demonstrates to the intended audience, those of Western cultures, a view of women in Cuba after the revolution that may otherwise be unknown. Women are portrayed as empowered young women, rather than people oppressed by the state or patriarchal values. The film did note the struggle for the women to leave the home against their parents' wishes and their reception by the people, but portrayed the struggle in a positive light, showing the progress that they made rather than dwelling on the obstacles in their way. The historical landscape. Not all the images used were of the literacy movement. The documentary included footage of the geopolitical landscape of Cuba at the time, including that of Fidel Castro, the Batista insurgents, and the Playa Girón, among others. This first image shows a long shot of Fidel Castro's address involving the literacy campaign at the United Nations General Assembly in 1960. The second is a medium shot of John F. Kennedy speaking about the Playa Girón invasion. The use of these images serves to give historical context to the world tensions during the time of the literacy campaign, while not making a particular statement. A different point of view. The intended audience of the film includes English-speaking countries, as is demonstrated by the use of English narration and subtitles. Historically, the Western view of post-revolutionary Cuba has been that of political oppression and limited growth and development. As a modern documentary, the film does not overtly challenge these viewpoints. Instead, it presents a positive accomplishment of the revolution without remarking on the political climate of the time. Here we see proud Cuban people coming together for the purpose of spreading literacy to all parts of Cuba. During the literacy campaign, 707,000 Cubans became literate that had never before been able to read or write their name. This documentary highlights the great accomplishments of the thousands of young people who left their homes to take on the task of a nationwide literacy through the combination of modern and historical footage.